Good morning. Okay, so we are now in April. I just got back from a work trip to find out that we've had a handful of days without torrential rain here in the UK in the northwest, and that means that golf courses have actually started to be open on at least a semi-consistent basis. Still a lot of temporaries, still a lot of mats, etc. But I don't care about that. I'm so excited the golf course has started to open. The Masters is just around the corner, and it finally feels like the golf season is kind of upon us in the UK. So one of the main areas of my game that I really want to work on this year and improve versus last year is on my wedges. So I've been doing some kind of practice really during the off season and wanted to kick off this year by building out a wedge matrix to really make sure that I know exactly how far I'm hitting all of my wedges to try and dial in that part of my game. If you're not familiar with what a wedge matrix is, it's basically just having a distance that you hit each of your different wedges for different swing lengths, and building up kind of a table to show you exactly how far each wedge goes at a different swing length, so that you know exactly how far you're going to be hitting the ball, and hopefully hit wedges a bit closer. So I had four different positions that I wanted to hit with each of my wedges. One where I feel like I bring my hands to like hip high. One where I bring them to more midriff, so stomach high. One where I bring them to like my chest, and then obviously a full swing. I did this for all of them except my 58-degree wedge, which is my lob wedge. The reason for this is for a couple of reasons. One is because the distance I'd have to stand away from my net to do the kind of swings. I was worried that I might be able to fire them up and over my net. And secondly is because this is just not really a swing that I actually do very much on the golf course. Like I rarely ever hit lob wedge full unless I needed to like flop it over a tree or something, or I was really trying to hack it out the rough. So not a yardage I thought was like that important or really able to practice. The other point that I would make is that I was hitting these off of a mat. And so normally off of a mat you hit the ball a bit further, especially with wedge shots, just because the club bounces off the turf more, and so basically you get more speed going up into the ball. It's the same if ever like chipped off a cart path or something like that. You basically need to factor in that the ball's going to go further. So I probably expect most of these to be 5 or 10 yards shorter, hitting off the kind of grass, which is definitely something that I would want to do when I first go out to the golf course, to kind of calibrate these numbers a little bit more. So the wedges I have then are 4-degree increments. I have a 58-degree wedge, 54-degree, 50, and then a pitching wedge, which is at about sort of 46 degrees, I believe. Might even be like 48, but because it's designed differently, basically they tend to go further. I think it is 48 degrees, and it just goes a bit further because of the way that it is designed. But anyway, having a look at some of the numbers. So I did these in ranges because I wanted to know, how far it would go if I didn't quite catch it perfectly. So if I needed to go over like a false front or a bunker or something like that, I wanted to make sure, okay, how far will it go if I catch it maybe a little bit thin or a little bit heavy. So that's why I've done them all in ranges rather than just individual numbers. Obviously, I did discount any where I hit it like super thin or super fat, because obviously that's not that helpful to know how far I hit it when I absolutely duff one. So you see there's like a couple where maybe the numbers change a little bit in the top left between shots. So that's just me excluding some of the numbers that are not really that helpful. So you can see from some of the numbers, you have some that kind of overlap a bit. Like you've got the stomach wedge that I had for the 58-degree versus the hip high with the 54-degree. So obviously that just means it gives me a little bit more versatility. Maybe if the pin's more at the back, hitting it with a less lofted club with a smaller swing, maybe a bit less speed, would allow the ball to release a little bit more and obviously get a bit less spin. So good to kind of see where some of these do actually overlap. Also really good for me to see some of the areas that maybe I have gaps. So one of the first one that stands out is at about 60 yards. I don't have a great yardage for there. Obviously a hip high one with a 58 would be more like 50, a little bit over 50. And then the closest would be hip high 54-degree wedge, which again would be kind of more like 65 to 70 yards. So Definitely something I'd want to look at there, maybe adjusting the loft of one of the wedges to try and fill a couple of the gaps, or maybe I just need to work on having a shot that I can kind of get that different distance. But besides that, I mean, I've got 50, then kind of 65 yards up to 70 yards. Got one at about 80, 85 to 90. Got quite a few now starting to overlap at this point, 90, 95, 100, 110, 115 type yardages. So good to have quite a variety of different options to be able to hit different shots depending on pin locations. If it's into wind or things like that, then definitely prefer to kind of go in for a lower flighted one, just to avoid, obviously, wedges when you get them up in the wind can really start to drift. So yeah, that's definitely something that I need to continue to work on. Also for me, when I was doing this exercise, definitely found this is an area that I really need to spend more time on. Obviously, we all know how important this area of the game is. It makes a massive difference, kind of the, often referred to as the scoring clubs. So really something that I, in the past, haven't spent as much time on as I probably should do, and definitely something that I want to kind of fix this year. Something that I also found quite interesting from doing this, in the past, I've just kind of got a couple of yardages when I've done the different kind of swing lengths and then filled the gaps based on what they should be rather than maybe what they actually are. So it was interesting to see, to me, how if you look at like the 58 degree wedge numbers, you can see there's like a much bigger separation between each of the numbers, as opposed to like the pitching wedge, where basically you find that the hip high ones really don't go much further than the hip high ones of the 50 degree wedge. That's just because obviously there's a lot less loft on that one. And so if you don't have enough speed, then the ball just doesn't fly that far. So basically when I go between the 50 and the pitching wedge, I'm getting a lot less spin and I'm going to get way more release, basically because the ball doesn't really run up the face anywhere near as much. So I felt like I got more kind of stock differences, a bigger jump between 58 and 54 with the smaller swings, whereas with the pitching wedge, I got some of the bigger differences between kind of hip high and then when I went into chest and kind of full length. So that was my final numbers. Overall, I felt like the spacing between the wedges is pretty good. Obviously, I have had them fit exactly for this in the past. Maybe it would be good to retest some of the hip high ones with the 54. Maybe if those ones are a little bit shorter, down at more like the 60 yard range, it's probably the one main gap that I could kind of see. Also just really cool to see, how I would be able to try and adjust some of the different yardages that I'd have in. And for me, I thought it was a really good test to do, and something that I'm going to keep with me and take forward into the golf season. So for me, I think that's a super useful kind of process to go through. Definitely interesting for me to see exactly how far my different wedges are going at the different swing lengths. As I say, definitely something that'd be good to take to the golf course and maybe calibrate a little bit for being off grass versus obviously hitting off of a mat. But I think it's a really good starting point. Let me know if this is something that you do, if it's something you've done in the past, or if this is a new thing to you. Obviously, if you did enjoy the video, if you would consider liking, commenting, and or subscribing, really makes a massive difference to how many people YouTube show the video to. But that is it for me in this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next ones. Fingers crossed we can start to do some out on the golf course in the not too far future.